The Holocaust was an unprecedented genocide, total and systematic, perpetrated by Nazi Germany and its collaborators, with the aim of annihilating the Jewish people, man, woman, or child. On this day, 76 years ago, Soviet forces liberated the Auschwitz-Birkenau. Auschwitz-Birkenau was a concentration and extermination camp. It was discovered and realized as the largest Nazi killing center in Europe. Auschwitz has become a symbol of the Holocaust, representing the depths of man's inhumanity to man. In November 2005, the United Nations passed a resolution to mark 27th of January as an International Day of Commemoration to honor the victims of the Holocaust. We are here today to commemorate the victims of the Holocaust and to help prevent such atrocities in the future. My name is Rasha Tamni, Deputy Chief of Mission at the Embassy of Israel. Can you please come closer? Next to me is Hannah Becker, the First Secretary at the Embassy of Germany. We will be the moderators of tonight's ceremony.
Excellencies, dear guests, ladies and gentlemen, a warm welcome also from my side. To give you a little structure of tonight's approximately 1 hour event, we have designed a very simple program centered on the remembrance of the victims of the German National Socialism. We will have speeches and cello and piano music by a German-Israeli duo and a candle lighting ceremony towards the end. First of all, we would like to ask Dr. Mala Stukenberg, Director, Goethe-Institut Korea, Regional Director, East Asia, for the opening remarks. Dr. Stukenberg, please come to the podium.
In 2005, the United Nations declared 27th January, the day of the liberation of the Auschwitz death camp, as International Holocaust Remembrance Day. For several years, the embassies of Israel and Germany, as well as the Goethe Institute in Seoul, have jointly commemorated this day of remembrance here in Korea. But this is the first time that a pandemic has forced us to express our admonishing remembrance in a form that many of us can only participate in online today. Against a global context of rising anti-Semitism and increasing levels of disinformation and hate speech, remembrance of the Shoah and the victims of Nazi persecution and Holocaust education remain very, very urgent. While the number of people who survived the genocide of Jewish men and women in Europe is steadily decreasing due to age, it is particularly important to reach out to young people. It is important to educate them about the unprecedented crimes committed under German Nazi rule. The traumatic impact of this dark chapter of history reaches right into the present. For anti-Semitic, racist, and xenophobic motives, a 20-year-old man planned an assassination attempt on the Jews gathered for the Yom Kippur festival in the Halle synagogue on 9th October 2019. A bloodbath did not ensue just because the sturdy synagogue door withstood the shots. I wish that through an active culture of remembrance, through not forgetting, through active civil society engagement, we will continue to strengthen the stable door against anti-Semitic ideas, against racism, against xenophobia, and never allow it to be penetrated again. I would like to thank all the participants and all those involved from both the embassies of Israel and Germany, as well as my colleagues here at the Goethe Institute, for making this event possible together. And finally, I would like to point out that other online events, for example, a Holocaust-themed film screening and a Holocaust online library, will complement today's event. And you can find information on this on the social media channels of all three partners. And I would like to thank you for sharing today's hour of remembrance with us. Thank you very much.
Now, I would like to ask tonight's guest of honor to the podium to deliver his speech. Honorable Song Yong-gil, Chairman of Foreign Affairs and Unification Committee of the National Assembly of Korea. Please.
Israel Ambassador Akiva Tor, German Ambassador Michel Lemprunstuhl, Head of German Cultural Center Marlaskenberg, Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Today we are here to remember historical atrocities and its victims. Humanity has been developing its civilization by remembering its own course of history. We have made great progress based on the past development, and we have remembered our own faults and learned lessons to create a better future. Therefore, it is important to remember the Holocaust, and we must face the dark past in order not to repeat the systematic cross-border hatred by humanity. The victims of the Holocaust were targeted by institutional discrimination due to their ethnicity, religion, or political beliefs. They became outcast and were diminished by society. Similar atrocities are being repeated in the world, and there can be another one in the future if we do not learn from the past. Thus, remembering the Holocaust is important for all of us to not repeat the history. We should now stop pouring out anger on other people, undermining human dignity and giving them unforgettable pain and hurt because they are different, not a matter of right or wrong. We should respect the value of humanity and work together to embrace difference and create a society together. Once again today, we learn a lot from the two countries who are hosting tonight's event together. That they remember and acknowledge the wounds of the past and mourn for the victims. 76 years after the liberation of Auschwitz, is meaningful to share a common perception that the Holocaust is cruel history that humanity should never repeat. The relationship between the Israel and the Germany, the remembering the dark past and developing into a new relationship, shows how nations can heal wounds and move forward into the future. There is also a brutal history in Asia. There were countless massacres, forced labors, and rapes committed by the Imperial Japanese force. Japan has been refusing to acknowledge its war guilt and atrocities. However, if we want to build a future-oriented relationship in the region, we should look at the relationship between Israel and Germany. We must mourn for the souls and the victims and remember and learn from the horrible atrocities. In my privately, about probably 7 years ago, I have a chance to visit Poland and Auschwitz Holocaust field, and so I'm very, very unbelievable. And just we saw the article, but directly I go to the Auschwitz, I can endure the tearing, my learning, my tore my heart and soul. How can human become like the demon, such kind of massacre? How can, like a German, when I was the student of university, I studied in Eddie from why are they German people very high intelligent, the modernized and the cultural people, Goethe came from German, Hegel, so many philosophers, so many artists came from German. How can they all they support Hitler and they how can the rationalize they legitimize such kind of cruel action to massacre the only they are Jewish. I'm very sad. And how can we prevent such kind of the cruel massacre not repeated? We should remember, and we educate our children and keep in mind we control the some and the hatred and discriminate the spirit in our internal heart. We should mutually encourage and go to the forward humanity and the tolerance and embrace. As you know, nearly every country, the political situation is very polarization, and including United States, many anti-Semitism, anti-Jewish, Judaism, also neo-Nazis, many extremely right-wing the movement. Finally, they storming the Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C., and I'm very concerned we should overcome such kind of the extremely movement. The reason why more important such kind of event, we can sharing our common experience and philosophy, and we should try to extend to next generation. I'd like to more express my appreciation such kind of meaningful event. The German ambassador and Israel, many relatives. Thank you. 고맙습니다. 감사합니다.
Thank you for your kind words, moving words. The first musical performance for tonight was composed by Joseph Ahron. Hebrew Melody, Ahron's first Jewish work, stands as a representation of Jewish suffering and wandering. Wandering in the diaspora, yearning for a place to call home, praying for that home to be Israel. Ahron's Hebrew melody was originally composed for violin and piano. However, since it has never been published, musicians over the generations have created their own arrangements for this work. This evening, we will experience Ahron's Hebrew melody through the arrangement of piano and cello, performed by Israeli pianist Avraham Reichert and German cellist Valentin Andelt.
Now, I would like to invite His Excellency, Akiva Tor, Ambassador of the State of Israel, to come to the podium for his address.
I'd like to begin by thanking our wonderful staffs at the embassies of Israel and Germany for preparation of this important event, and the wonderful musicians from Israel and Germany. Thank you so much. The Honorable Song Young-gil, Chairman of the National Assembly Foreign Affairs Committee, my friend and colleague, His Excellency Michael Reifenstuhl, Ambassador of the Federal Republic of Germany, our gracious host and partner, Dr. Marla Stuckenberg, Director of the Goethe Institute, students and young people of the Republic of Korea, honored guests. Many awful things happen in the world. Why then is it correct and proper that we gather once a year to remember the Shoah, the destruction of the Jewish people in Europe by the Nazi regime and its collaborators in the years 1939 to 1945? Why did the United Nations see fit that this catastrophe should be commemorated in every country, even in East Asia, in regions that were not party to the Second World War in Europe, and where the endemic anti-Semitism that made the Holocaust possible was and is hardly present in society? The destruction of European Jewry in the Holocaust was unprecedented in human history. More than 75 years later, the events of the Holocaust still stand out as a unique hatred. There was no internal logic in the persecution of the Jews. In Germany, the Jewish community was fully integrated in society. They did not compete for economic resources or hold an anti-national ideology. In Germany, they did not look different. They were not an easy or obvious scapegoat. They were Germany's most loyal citizens and valued contributors to high German culture. Until the advent of Nazism in 1933, Germany was an advanced liberal society and a forebearer of Western Enlightenment, science, and art. The European continent had been a home to Jewish life for over 1,000 years, and yet the annihilation of 6 million men, women, and children was total, and in many places was welcomed and abetted. The destruction was thorough and complete. European Jewry will never recover. Jewish life thrives in Israel and elsewhere, but Europe will forever be impoverished of its Jewish communities. The Holocaust was incomprehensible, and yet it happened in the heart of modernity, in a technological age of mass media, in a period not that different from our own in terms of material and societal circumstance. This is why it behooves us to learn. This is why it is essential to study the history of the Holocaust in every land, because it remains the ultimate mystery of evil, explainable yet defying explanation, a legacy with which all humanity must contend. The UN has dedicated this year's theme to Holocaust remembrance and education and has focused correctly on a new danger: denial and distortion of the historical record. There is an evil wind in the air. It is enabled by an uncritical cybersphere which will broadcast any lie if it serves the economic need of the internet. Only very recently has Facebook determined that Holocaust denial is a form of severe hate speech and not mere historical debate. And so the commemoration of the Shoah is ever more vital due to the new means of transmitting knowledge. Because if the Holocaust, one of the most documented and studied events in history, can be denied or distorted in this age of transmission of knowledge, then any solid fact can be assaulted and no objective truth is safe. Thank you. 감사합니다.
Thank you, Ambassador, for your words. The second musical piece tonight was composed by the Russian composer Dmitri Shostakovich. Born in 1906, he experienced almost all periods of the Soviet Union, from the October Revolution to the stagnation under Brezhnev. Stalin wanted Soviet composers to write music that was joyful and optimistic. Shostakovich often did the opposite. He expressed the terror, fear, and frustration of living in Stalinist Russia. In a certain phase of his work, Shostakovich made extensive use of Jewish folk music elements. Jewish music was for him not just a purely musical issue, but above all, a moral issue. Shostakovich's memoir give insight into the composer's relationship to Jews. He said, "I often test a person by his attitude towards Jews. In our day and age, any person with pretensions of decency cannot be anti-Semitic." The piece we will listen to now is one of Shostakovich's earlier works, composed in 1934, Largo, the third movement of Dmitri Shostakovich's Cello Sonata, Opus 40.
Michael Reifenstuhl, Ambassador of the Federal Republic of Germany, to come to the podium for his address.
Honored Chair of the National Assembly Foreign Affairs Committee, Honorable Ambassador of the State of Israel, dear friend Akiva, dear Mala Stuckenberg, students, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to join the Israeli ambassador by thanking the Goethe Institute and all participants from our two embassies for preparing this event. Many, many thanks. The Holocaust is unprecedented, but it is not unique. If it was unique, we could forget about it, because it could happen only once. But it could happen again. We are here because we want to avoid that. These are the words of Yehuda Bauer, honorary chairman of the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, IRA, at the Alliance Ministerial Meeting in January 2020. Shortly after, Germany assumed the presidency of IRA in March 2020 with the firm determination to uphold the remembrance of the victims and those who stood against the Holocaust and to fight against any diminishing or distortion or denial of the Holocaust. Under the German presidency, a global task force against Holocaust distortion was established to identify and to promote strategies for countering this phenomenon. The IRA also reached an agreement on a non-legally binding working definition on anti-Roma discrimination. As remembrance events increasingly shifted online, a record number of over 350 delegates from all over the world were brought together at an online plenary to discuss Holocaust education, remembrance, and research at the end of last year. The IRA's decision-making body, the plenary, was provided with a report by the Museums and Memorials Working Group on how to support Holocaust-related institutions, many of which are at risk of permanent closure because of COVID-19. Germany's presidency was marked by the pandemic, which has strongly affected the form and future of Holocaust remembrance. Exploring the potential of digital solutions will be essential for safeguarding the historical truth of the Holocaust and for education for the next generation. This will be an ongoing challenge when Germany hands over the IRA presidency to Greece in March this year. Ladies and gentlemen, today, Holocaust remembrance is at a critical juncture. Fewer and fewer survivors and eyewitnesses are with us to continue to share their testimony. German President Frank-Walter Steinmeier said in Yad Vashem in 2020, the industrial mass murder of 6 million Jews, the worst crime in the history of humanity, it was committed by my countrymen. And he continued, yes, we Germans, we remember, but sometimes it seems as though we understand the past better than the future. The spirits of evil are emerging in a new guise, presenting their anti-Semitic, racist, authoritarian thinking as an answer for the future, a new solution to the problems of our age. I wish I could say that we Germans have learned from history once and for all. But I cannot say that when hatred is spreading. I cannot say that when Jewish children in Germany are spat on in the schoolyard. There remains only one answer, never again. That is why there cannot be an end to remembrance. Remembering the 6 million Jewish victims of the Holocaust perpetrated by Nazi Germany is the responsibility not only of governments, but of societies as a whole. And as a German citizen, I see it as my duty to contribute actively that the Holocaust will be never forgotten. Holocaust denial must be resolutely countered by every German, by everybody in the world, in Germany and worldwide. And I would like to underline the Holocaust and the atrocities committed by Nazi Germany are beyond any comparison. Today, we are here to ensure all of us together that we never forget and to reaffirm our unshakable position against all forms of anti-Semitism, racism, and hate crimes.
We would like to proceed with the candle lighting ceremony. The candle lighting ceremony will be followed by a moment of silence in memory of those who perished in the Holocaust. We would like to ask Honorable Sang Yong-gil to light the first candle.
To light the second candle, we invite Colonel Yarif Ben Ezra, the defense attaché of the Israeli embassy.
To light the third candle, we invite Colonel Akim Neitert, the military attaché of the German embassy.
To light the fourth candle, we invite Dr. Uyo Huang, the former Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Education.
To light the fifth candle, we invite Ms. Shai Gambash as a representative of Israeli youth.
To light the sixth candle, we invite Ms. Helene Scheitel as a representative of German youth. We would now like to share a minute of silence with you all. Let us remember the victims of the atrocious crimes of the Holocaust. And let us think of all those who were killed and or have suffered from the reign of terror. Would you all please stand up?
Thank you. You may now take your seat. Commemoration of the Holocaust is becoming more challenging with each passing day. Holocaust denial and anti-Semitism are on the rise around the world. The last of the survivors are passing away, soon to leave no eyewitness to the atrocities. It is our duty to find ways to ensure that Holocaust commemoration remains relevant for future generations. It is our duty to never forget humanity's darkest hour. It is our duty to remember and keep this memory, lest it happens again. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes tonight's ceremony. Thank you.